All right. Yeah. Wow. We're kicking off another theme, just jumping into the month of April and trying to have some broad range conversations around the criminal justice system. Our hope and our thought with all the interviews we're doing is that it's an opportunity for us to learn, hopefully build some bridges of understanding, like get a glimpse at kind of different sides of the counter that people are in these kind of various landscapes that we address. And I feel like this month is there's going to be some energy on this. Like there's a lot to talk about. Um, I'm sitting down right now with Derrick. Derrick is doesn't have his video turned on, and that's on purpose. We're wanting to kind of begin the the conversation with talking to somebody who was incarcerated. So Derrick is a fictitious name; it's not his real name. His camera's not turned on, so you don't see his face. But we're basically going to crack it open with talking to somebody who broke the law, went to jail, is now out of jail, is you know he's served his time, so to speak. He's you know if the criminal justice systems work, then like, hey, he did what he was supposed to do, and now he's kind of back to quote unquote normal life. After talking to Derrick off camera, that could nothing could be further from the truth. He's definitely not back to normal life at all. That sounds like his life is still very limited. Um, so good to have you with us, Derrick. Thanks so much for joining us and for taking the time. How's it going today?
It's going good. Thank you. I appreciate you making space to hear kind of all sides of the criminal justice system and what it's like to be on the other side of the law. I think that's important. So thank you.
Yeah, I feel like I have a ton to learn. Hopefully our audience would be in the same mindset. It's like we're here to learn, and again, this is mostly a Christian audience. We're Jesus followers, kind of for the most part. So we're hoping that the church is learning as we're having these conversations. So as much as you're willing to talk about what got you in contact with the criminal justice system.
Yeah, so I had never been in trouble with
Okay.
the law. Um, up until the time where I was in trouble with the law, like in 2018. And
Yeah.
so my experience leading up to that was probably one that a lot of your viewers and your listeners would find themselves in, is like knowing what you hear, knowing what you know about the criminal justice system from what you gather on news and reading articles and whatnot. Definitely not
Sure.
firsthand experience.
Sure.
And then through some really poor life choices that I made, some really destructive behaviors that I had in the summer of 2018. I just made some decisions that, like I was telling you earlier, that just exploded my life. Like it
Okay.
just tore up my life, and I found myself in the fall of 2018 being arrested. Um, and having to face just the decisions that I'd made the last 3 months.
Yeah.
And
And
and yeah,
leading up to that, sounds like you were, like a lot of humans, you were
uh-huh.
broken and you were navigating internal stuff and probably not doing super well. And I would assume you might have been reaching out to people on some level because you're in the church and maybe connected to a church at some level, and you're probably asking for help, maybe, but sounds like you may not have been asking for help very well. But what I'm getting at is like you were in a really broken place
Yes.
before you crossed the line and made a decision that, yeah, got you, like it was like you broke the law.
Yeah, no, and I won't make any excuses in terms of that part of it. Like I broke the law. Like I
Yeah,
knew the law and I made decisions that were against the law, and knowing
yeah,
full well that that could come back and put me in the position that I was put in. I would say, yeah, I was in a very unhealthy place before that. Um, there were probably like red flags and warning signs around me and in my life that people probably just didn't speak up or didn't see. Actually,
okay,
one of my friends through the process after it all came out said like, oh man, I knew something was up, but I just didn't know what it was or how to
Yeah.
approach it. And so
Yeah.
I would say for people, especially for people in the church, like speak up if you're in a hard place, like speak up. And then also if you feel like there's somebody that's close to you that's in a rough place, like say something, bring it
That's
up,
good.
don't be afraid.
That's
um,
good.
and I would also say this, that don't feel like you would ever not find yourself in the situation where you've made decisions that could lead you to jail. um, like
What do you mean by that?
it's a very real, like it can
Yep.
happen, it can literally happen to anybody.
Sure.
We're all of us are probably one or two really bad decisions away from having an experience like I experienced. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it's
that's
very
sobering. That's extremely sobering. And I think like I want to do that as a leader in the church, actually talk
yeah.
about the frailty
Hmm.
of the human experience. And like there are moments when we are down or we're low or we're
Hmm.
weak or
Yeah.
we're struggling or we're under the weight of temptation and like how real and authentic are our relationships. And I
Right.
think that authenticity and ultimately the strength of our relationships is connected to our willingness to be honest,
Yeah.
not hide. And there's a lot that keeps people in hiding.
Yeah.
Um, it's not an easy choice to just say, here I am, and these are the things I'm struggling with. And in your story, you weren't able to do that, and man, the inability to do that led you to like actually being incarcerated. So let's talk
Yeah.
about that now. Like, so you entered into like a court process,
Yeah.
you were convicted of a crime, like,
Yeah. So that process is long. So a lot of people don't realize, but so I got arrested in September of 2018, and I was actually in county jail for about 9 months.
wow.
Um, uh, going through the process. So before I actually ended up going to prison, I was in county jail for that long.
Okay.
Um, and the very first memory I have of jail, of incarceration, is they give you these like county issued or bright orange Crocs. It's a
Yep.
silly thing to think about, but I still remember waking up that first morning after being arrested and having absolutely nothing and being in a cell and looking down at my feet and having these bright orange Crocs on and just realizing that my life is never going to be the same.
Wow.
And that process was long. There was some really crazy things that happened once you're incarcerated. Like, it's just a different society, it's a different world. And there were things that went on that like kind of remind you of like prison movies and what you would see on TV and in movies, but it's a different world, and it was very eye-opening, like right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, like what you're describing, there's a whole different culture. I mean, that different culture
Yeah.
or jail life, prison life, um, I mean, does somebody go in there and come out better, or do they go in there and come out worse? I mean, I'm sure everyone has different choices and different paths, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely what you make it, right?
okay.
It's
Yeah.
what you make it, and I don't want to um make it sound like I'm just blaming the system and blaming the people involved in the system,
Yeah.
but it's very hard within the system to make better choices than what got you there,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Like, the
Yeah.
whole system is the culture that's created in there is violent, is
Hmm.
is kind of fend for yourself or surround yourself by
Yeah.
people that can fend for you.
Yeah.
There's at all levels there's people that are going to take advantage of nice people. They're going to take advantage of people in there that they think they can get something over on. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a hard system to make good choices and to come out better. And that's probably why you see, I don't know if you've looked at recidivism rates, but you know, the rates of recidivism or people reoffending are like the
Yeah.
best case scenario are 66%, you know? So 2 out of 3 people who get out of prison are going to actually do something to get them back into prison. And I think that's a
Yeah.
real number. Like we need to figure out why that's happening. And part of it is the culture that's created within the system.
Which, I mean, maybe unpack that a little bit. So you've
Yeah.
already said some words. It's violent. You have to
Yeah.
fend for yourself.
Yeah.
What what else is going on there that you're like, hey, I don't know that this is setting people up for change.
Yeah. So I'll my very first like eye-opening experience when I was in there is the I mean, I don't want to get like too too graphic on for people, but um somebody found out who I was and my
Yeah.
case,
Yeah.
and so they were allowed out of their cell by one of the guards,
Okay.
and this is in county,
Yeah.
and they gassed my cell, which is a term where they take a bag of their own feces and they shove it under the door jamb and they stomp on it, and it so it basically like shoots all of their feces into your cell. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and that is like tacitly approved of and okayed by, I mean, there's no other way for them to do that other than if, the guards are allowing it to happen because there's cameras everywhere and
Yeah.
whatnot. And
Yeah.
so that's just one example of like the system allowing violence and allowing those behaviors to be okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Like a code of conduct
yeah,
that probably mirrors the system in general, like very punitive, very like, oh, this was done, then there's this recompense.
yeah, there's a consequence to
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, I think like serving time is like a wow, that's an intense reality of accountability, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
okay, and accountability is effective, it's powerful to bring change,
Yeah.
but it
Um,
sounds like abiding within that environment. Yeah, I guess in my mind, like, are you learning how to become somebody else, somebody that doesn't make those kinds of choices?
yeah.
That's what I'm after.
Oh, yeah. So, once you get to, so I would say county versus state prison, there's a big
Yeah.
difference between that. And people say jail, but jail can mean, usually jail is referred to when you're talking about county, when you're talking
Okay.
about county time. Prison, the state prison system, there's a lot more opportunities for getting into programs and taking classes and trying to rehabilitate, and there's things to do. So if you really do want to fill your time up with good things,
Yeah.
once you get to state prison, there are some really good things that you can take advantage of.
Okay.
Like for instance, the people that I surrounded myself with, we took college classes while we were there,
Yeah.
and not only are you like trying to learn and better yourself and learn skills, but you also get time off of your sentence if you behave well and if you're taking classes and programming, doing the things that they're asking you to do. So there are some rehabilitative things that are happening. You definitely need to seek those out. Like you need to be on top of it. You need to um, like be vocal for yourself in order to get into those programs and do those things. Yeah.
That's educational. I would have thought the other way. Like being in a local jail, it's probably more mellow. You go to like a state level thing, it's more intense, and
Yeah.
you're like, no, it's actually that's where it might get a little bit more
Yeah.
like real life, where you can make progress and
Yeah.
be a person that's making decisions to better themselves. And yeah.
Yeah, like once I hit the prison yard that I was actually at for most of my time at the
Yeah.
state level, like I was leading worship at the chapel before COVID hit. I
Okay.
was involved in Bible studies. I was taking college classes. I was doing those things.
Yeah.
And it was actually a really positive. I was able to have a good influence over other guys too,
Sure.
at that level. So, and it's also different because I was at a very low level state prison. I was at a level 2, and there's, um, you know, 1, 2, 3, and 4 levels. So I was at the lowest level that I could go to, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's for nonviolent, majority of nonviolent offenders would be at a level 2 or level 1. And
Okay.
I'm guessing that the situation for a level 4 would be quite a bit different.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in general, like interacting, like being a receiver of the criminal justice system, it's like it's intense. It's hard. What'd you learn about yourself?
um, so many things, so
Yeah.
many things. Probably the hardest part for me during the process was the I didn't get to hug or hold family members
Okay.
for the whole process.
Wow.
So, you think about not being able to actually like have physical contact with anybody that you were close with,
Hmm.
um, for 3 years. Like that's really hard.
Oh
Like,
man.
and but what I learned through that is that, um, I can have a little bit or I can have a lot, but I'm actually going to be, work my hardest to be super thankful for the things that God has given me.
Okay.
And that's good or bad. Like, um, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. And I think, um, in church culture, like we have a tendency to say, oh, it's all going to be good. It's all going to, I've accepted Jesus. I'm following this path and it's all going to be good.
Hmm.
But Jesus actually says that, you know, you're going to have persecution. Now, a lot of my persecution came because I made horrible decisions in my life, right?
Yeah.
But, just having nothing and going through that process of having nothing really showed me to be thankful for the little things. Like I was
Sure.
able to have a hot cup of coffee this morning, which
Yep.
is not something that I could have done, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, um, it's made me more thankful and more intent on my relationships. I think it's changed how I approach friendships, and, um, I really want things on a deeper level with people. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned.
Yeah. So, you're out, you're no longer incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that right there. The responses that you experienced from your community, both at the outset and now kind of quote unquote after.
Yeah. So I would say, um, from the church community, and we talked a little bit about this before we hit you record, but, uh, there was only one, really one person who kind of stuck by me through all of it
Yep.
in the church community, and, we actually didn't even know each other until after I was incarcerated.
Yeah.
But so that process has been really hard to process the fact that like the church family that I thought was there or going to be there no matter what, through thick or thin, were a
Yeah.
family, and, it wasn't there when I got out, and that was really hard. But
What do you ascribe that to? I mean,
I th-
why was that the case? I'm sure there's a few dynamics at
oh
least.
yeah, I think like it's taken me a lot of processing on my own to not be bitter anymore,
Hmm.
about certain aspects of that. But I think primarily, people don't know how to handle it. When you're confronted with, oh my gosh, this guy that I know has committed these crimes, like I just don't know how to handle that. Like I
Okay.
don't, and I think that's part of it. I think also, um, in our church culture, sometimes we live very surface level,
Yeah.
and we say things that we probably don't necessarily mean 100%. And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is like, I really love doing life with people. I really love these people. But like, if you stop and think about that, like, does that mean that if everything else fell apart, if if the whole world was against me, would you still be there for me? And it's good to have those conversations, because I think if we were honest with ourselves, it would be, we would have those conversations before, our lives fall apart.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think friendship and relationships is, yeah, that's like a really nuanced idea.
Yeah.
Like we're close to people we relate to, we spend time with people we in some ways agree with or resonate with. And then all of a sudden, said individual blows up their life and is a criminal now.
Yeah.
Like, am I still their friend? It's interesting. The one person you experienced a sense of connection to was someone you didn't know
Mm-hmm.
before messing up. And
Yeah.
so I again I think there's a lot to talk about there, but it's definitely an indictment. It's a sad indictment on the church that there weren't people that knew you that had the strength of compassion to be like, bro, I'm with you. Like, I love you. This is crazy.
Yeah.
What do you need to do to fix your life? But I'm not going anywhere. And
Uh-huh.
which I do think is, I don't know. I feel like that's a human call, but I was going to say it's a call to us as Christians. But I think all humans crave and value loyalty
Yeah.
in the sense of like, yeah,
Yeah. And a few of those relationships, like I will say, have been kind of rebuilt a little bit. So as they process, what it's like to have, this person in your life that's completely messed up, like a couple of those relationships we have been able to mend and rebuild, which is good. But yeah, initially getting out, and even now, a year after being out of prison, um, that's still something very real that I deal with. So
yeah. So how is that? Talk about like reintegrating.
yeah, yeah,
Like there's that's a really common idea. It's like, wow, okay, if you've been incarcerated, can you get a job? Can you find a place to live? Can you like quote unquote live a normal life? And I think
yeah,
media or art, stories, shows, films has made it pretty obvious that it's not that simple.
yeah.
Uh, what's the real story?
The real story. So um, there's programs out there that are actually um, doing great work to make sure the transition from prison to life is, there's at least a support system for people that don't have any support. And I have a great family around me. Like, my family is there for me,
Okay.
and if it weren't for them, I'd be in a different situation than I am now. But
Yeah.
there's, in the local area, so in the Reading area, there's a program called No Boundaries, um, and it's a transitional housing program. There, I would suggest that if people have any interest in helping out in any ways, like, find those transitional housing programs and see how they can help. Because No Boundaries was a lifesaver for me. I would have come out and been homeless in Reading
Okay.
if it wasn't for the transitional housing that I had. And
Okay.
and specifically, Christine, the program director, just um, went to bat for me and just said, like, I believe in you. Like, I believe that you can rebuild your life, and super helpful. It is really hard getting out. Since the time I've been out, I've gotten off of probation. So I had a 6-month probation um, assigned to me upon release.
Yeah.
And I was able to discharge actually a month early from probation. So I only did 5 months of probation, which is great. And I'm really thankful that the officer that I had was really understanding and supportive of me and my journey. And he
Yeah.
was actually a really positive experience for me. So um,
Nice.
yeah, it's really hard to get a job. Really, really hard to get a job. Even in this climate where you see all these companies advertising for employees. Um,
Yeah.
I literally, it took me a year to find a company that would take me on, even after a background check.
Okay.
So primarily the jobs that I've had from, for the last year have been temporary jobs or jobs that don't require a background check.
Yeah.
And I was just, within the last 2 months, I was able to apply and interview a couple different times for a job that I have now that I'm really thankful for. But it's really hard. It's really hard to get a job. It's really hard to go through that process again and again and be told no. I
Yeah.
remember, getting the no from an Amazon warehouse and being like, I'm done. I can't do this again. I I've applied to like 20 different jobs and I can't even get hired at Amazon. So,
Yeah.
um, it's
What's
difficult.
your knowledge or insight on like if higher education, like if you were quote unquote well educated but formerly incarcerated, would that also be true?
So I
Like
am highly, yeah.
can you even apply for jobs with unique skill sets as somebody who was formerly incarcerated?
I know the process is really difficult.
Yeah.
I have a degree. I have a college background,
Yeah.
and the jobs that I've worked so far, even the job that I currently have, is what would be considered an entry level type position.
Sure.
Um, I would say a college degree definitely will help. If you're doing anything in the tech field, if you have a tech background or a tech degree, you
Yeah.
can usually get like a contract type job, and
Okay.
most of those contract jobs don't require a background check. And but my experience has been like, yeah, it doesn't matter that I have a degree. The background check is the big barrier.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Is
Yep.
there anything that you'd want somebody to know about, like whether you're speaking to the church or just people in general,
Hmm.
about your experience, the criminal justice system that we may not know about that would be really enlightening? You've already shared a bunch that's enlightening.
Yeah.
Um,
I would say, kind of reiterate my experience with the church is, uh, like we need to do, and this is for me as well,
yeah,
but we need to do better at representing Jesus in all aspects. And it's really easy for us to vilify somebody. And I actually see it going the other way too right now. Is like we actually vilify the criminal justice system and police officers
yeah,
and DAs and all that. And but for some reason we find it easy to vilify people. Like if we don't
yeah,
agree with somebody, or if we don't align with their decisions, or if
sure.
we feel ashamed at what they've done in the past, we tend to remove ourselves from those relationships, and we
Yeah,
tend to, it's like an us versus them mentality.
yeah,
And that's not what Jesus actually is about.
yeah,
And I think the biggest thing is um, don't use somebody's experience or somebody's past transgressions to make an excuse for you not showing them who Jesus is. I think that's the biggest thing.
that's great.
And because you never know, but you might be the one person. Like my one friend who connected with me and stayed in contact. Like you might be that one lifeline for that person. And
Yeah,
so that would be my call to the church is just let's be Jesus. And it's uncomfortable. It can be out of your comfort zone, but be Jesus. And yeah, that'd be my
that's
one
good.
advice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you're highlighting that. Anything about how the criminal justice system works that you'd want people to know that are otherwise unaware?
Um yeah, I would say it's our system is very punitive,
Uh-huh.
and our system is very um geared towards let's punish people for crimes that they've done.
Yeah.
And everybody should agree on that. Like across the board, everybody should agree that our system is punitive. Like that's
Yeah.
not a discussion we should have. Like it's a punitive system. Now, whether or not you say punitive is correct or more of a restorative justice system is correct, now that's a discussion we can have. You know,
Yeah.
what do we want to see in our system? I think that's a great discussion.
Yep.
But it is a punitive system. And when you're on the other side of it, you realize right away, especially if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the money to hire the right people, you are in a position where you are at the mercy of the system.
Yeah.
And if that's what we want, then fine.
Yeah.
Then, but if we want to actually have a restorative system, then I think there's a lot of changes that we need to make.
What about that? Like, what did you experience that was restorative in any way? So you mentioned um, programs like No Boundaries. You mentioned that you were able to take college classes. So there obviously were some things
Yeah.
kind of available that could limit recidivism, or in my mind, it's more like they're empowering to you
Hmm.
becoming a like a functioning member of society once you get out. Anything else that you saw that like, wow, no, this is helpful, even though, yeah, generally speaking, it's a punitive
Yeah.
ecosystem. It's a punitive ecosystem, but there are some elements within there that if people have their head on straight, like they can make some choices, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I would say, what we talked about already. So having the programs available, the college classes available. I don't know what it's like in other states, but
Yeah,
in California, there's definitely opportunities. I would also say just the volunteers. Like, there's a ton of people that volunteer and give of their time to make programs happen. Like,
okay.
I know the church that was run inside the prison that I was at is we have a chaplain, who's hired by the state, their state chaplain. But a lot of the people that came and helped with the services are just volunteers. They're people from the church on the outside that come into the prison and help out.
All right.
And that's great. Like that, like knowing that people on the outside are actually thinking of you and praying for you can help in that restorative process.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say definitely more opportunities for restorative practices on the state level. Um,
Yeah.
there's some things locally that could probably be done to make it more of a restorative system.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Any details on what that could look like in your mind? And
Yeah, I mean that's probably like a decision at the county level, but just
sure.
allowing more programs to happen in the county jail system.
Okay.
Um, it's basically a holding tank.
Yeah.
A lot of your day is just working out, like doing a whole bunch of burpees and watching TV and and phone calls. Like that's pretty much it. So um, maybe some programs that would help the process get started at the county level, I think would help.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of burpees. I don't want.
Gosh. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
because there's like not even facilities, huh? You don't even have weights to sling around. It's just literally body weight stuff, huh?
Yeah, and actually on the county level, we only got maybe 1 hour of like gym time, a basketball court, um, once every other day.
Uh,
Yeah, so the most of the time it's spent in the cells or in the pod, which
yeah,
is
which I mean,
yeah.
psychologically, that's what does that equate to? Like caged animals, you're definitely going to be dealing with some frustration, right?
Yes,
It's like a
definitely.
lot of pent up energy, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yes, very much so.
that sounds intense. Like,
Yeah.
whoa.
And even so I didn't mention this before, but even the windows on the county, at least where I was at, they're frosted over. And so you don't even
Wow.
get like real sunlight unless you have that 1 hour of gym time, which you can kind of see through the chain link fence sometimes. But yeah, it does something to your mind when you're in there for that long.
That sounds brutal.
Yeah.
Man. Well, man, really, really, just so much respect your way for sharing your journey with us. And anything that I haven't led you towards that you wanted to share? Anything else in your mind as we're talking about this big subject?
The only thing that would come up is just I'm really thankful that you are making a place to have this conversation. Um,
Oh, thanks. Thanks for saying that. That's cool. Appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, because it's um, it's very easy to pick a side and to just fill your time with people that agree with you. And I think it's
Yeah.
important now more than ever. It's important for us to have the conversations like this,
Yeah.
where you can sit down with somebody. Maybe we don't agree on everything, but I think it's important to have those conversations and just making a space available for people to hear every part of it and every side is really, I'm just thankful for the opportunity and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing. So that's awesome that you're thankful we're interviewing you. I just feel like thanks for being willing. Um, Again, we're chatting with Derrick. That's a fictitious name, who is no longer incarcerated, but was, and he's got some great insights and thoughts on the criminal justice system. And just appreciate you sharing your journey. And yeah, praying for you, man, that you find your footing, get a sense of rhythm, able
Mhm.
to start putting roots down and start living again. And maybe we'll finish with this thought, Derrick. Like, how's it going? I mean, you obviously had internal strife
Mhm.
that led you to make some choices you knew weren't good choices.
Yeah.
Now you're out. I mean, I'm sure you still have things you're battling internally.
Mhm.
How is that going? And I didn't even let you know I was going to ask you that question, but
No, that's
do
okay.
you feel like there's been some healing? Do you feel like there's been some like growth? And I mean,
Yeah.
I think healing and growth is like the rest of our lives. I don't think we just
Right?
get there.
Yeah, and it
But
never stops. Should never stop.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
I I have grown a lot through the process. I think that I am a more aware individual with where I'm at and how I'm doing
Yeah,
personally, and I'm okay with having those uncomfortable conversations now with people that I trust and that have
yeah,
built that friendship, that relationship with, and so yeah, there's a lot of work still left in me to do, um, but
sure.
I'm super thankful of where I'm at. I'm super thankful that I still have a chance to be. Um, I have a son, and so I'm super thankful to have a chance to be in his life, and hopefully
Yeah,
for the rest of my life be a good example of of um, a man to him. And
yeah,
I'm thankful that God's not done with me yet. So
yeah,
I yeah, I like where I'm at. I'm not like, my life is still kind of in shambles in some ways, but I'm growing. I'm trying to, take it day by day and really
yeah,
learn what I can
totally.
and be better. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
good. I'm in a yeah,
I pray you get that support. Like we all need it. We all need community,
yeah,
like a place to be, a place where we're embraced. And
yeah,
it's crazy when we don't have that, how much more vulnerable we are,
yeah,
susceptible we are, and but we got people in our corner and that know us. And so I'll be
yeah,
praying for you there. And thanks so much for sharing your story, bro. I don't think you've said anything here that's like been crazy or controversial, or I mean, you've even been honoring and respectful back to those that incarcerated you, the criminal justice system. It's like you've been like, no, they serve a place. And
yeah.
yeah, again, really good to get your perspective and your journey.
Thank you.
And glad we met, Derrick. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good one. See ya.
All right, so I'm gonna officially say goodbye, and we'll continue the conversation throughout the month of April. Our hope is to be talking to people that are also on the other side of the counter, those that are law enforcement and otherwise, talk to some people that are running some nonprofits, and hopefully we'll get like a bit of a broad view of this whole idea of the criminal justice system. All right, with that, we'll say goodbye. Adios. Bless you guys. Peace.